U.S. President Donald Trump says he will now impose a 50% tariff on copper imports. He made the declaration at a cabinet meeting in Washington, but it's unclear.
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%. 50%.
What he's doing there, Kelly, is he's going through all of those investigations that have been ongoing into sectoral tariffs.
Copper prices soared to unprecedented levels, hitting $5.95 per pound on the New York futures market within minutes of the announcement. A 13% single-day surge, the largest in the contract's history. This spike pushed U.S. prices 25% above London Metal Exchange benchmarks, creating a massive arbitrage opportunity. This tariff threatens Canada's $9.3 billion copper industry, which relies on shipping Quebec or to Asian smelters before supplying refined metal to U.S. factories. Ottawa now faces a stark choice: absorb the cost or redirect exports to bypass American markets entirely. Either option reshapes North American trade overnight. Analysts at Cox Automotive estimate that a 25% metal tariff already adds $6,000 to the price of a Canadian-built car. A 50% duty could inflate that surcharge to 5 figures, hitting consumers hard. Over the next 14 minutes, we'll unpack Trump's strategy of applying pressure before negotiating, explore Canada's response, and pose a critical question. Are American voters prepared to bear the cost of a new trade war every time they buy a vehicle or pay their utility bills? On July 10th, hours after Wall Street's close, Trump signed a Section 232 proclamation imposing the 50% tariff on all imported copper, effective August 1st. The White House justified the move as essential for national security. Yet, with the U.S. importing 810,000 tons of refined copper in 2024, half the metal-powering American industry will now face a tax equivalent to that on luxury vehicles. The proclamation also extended a negotiation deadline from July 9th to August 1st, giving Canada, China, and the EU 3 weeks to secure exemptions or face the full duty. Trade experts see this as a classic Trump tactic: pressure first, deal later. Before this announcement, the average U.S. import duty had already risen to 16%, the highest since the 1930s. The International Chamber of Commerce warns that the copper tariff could push this average above 20%, a level unseen in 9 decades. Markets reacted instantly. COMEX copper futures surged over 12% to a record high, reflecting fears of supply chain disruptions. Shares of Freeport-McMoRan rose, but Canada's S&P/TSX Materials Index dipped, highlighting the tariff's uneven impact on miners across the border. Canada, which supplied a quarter of U.S. copper imports last year, bore the brunt. Prime Minister Mark Carney pledged to shield Canadian businesses and workers, signaling potential World Trade Organization (WTO) challenges and retaliatory measures while exploring options to redirect exports to Asia. The private sector isn't waiting. Teck Resources has secured warehouse and port space to ship copper directly to Asian markets, a plan activated when Trump lifted aluminum tariffs in March. In essence, the 50% copper duty is more than a policy shift. It's a seismic event that reconfigures North American trade and pushes U.S. tariffs to historic highs. Next, we'll explore how these costs ripple through electric vehicle production, power grid expansions, and even ammunition reserves, and why Canada's response could reshape global markets permanently. The market upheaval began within 48 hours of Trump's signature. On July 8th, U.S. COMEX copper futures jumped over 12% to $12,330 per metric ton, the fastest climb since the Hunt brothers' silver squeeze. The London Metal Exchange lagged, creating a $1,600 per ton transatlantic premium, enough to fund an entire smelting operation through arbitrage. Shipping routes scrambled overnight. New Orleans warehouses reported a 40% surge in inbound copper cathodes, while LME stocks dwindled as metal flowed toward the higher-priced U.S. market. Downstream, the impact is severe. An electric vehicle requires up to 80 kilograms of copper, 4 times that of a gas-powered car. Every 5 cent per pound price increase adds $90 to production costs. For Tesla's Fremont plant, This translates to millions in added monthly expenses. Ford suppliers warn that these costs could appear in August invoices, coinciding with back-to-school spending. Power utilities face similar pressures. A mile of high-voltage transmission line uses nearly 5 tons of copper, inflating Biden-era grid upgrade costs by hundreds of millions. Utilities may need to delay projects or request emergency rate hikes. Canada, caught in the tariffs crosshairs, is pivoting fast. Teck Resources is redirecting copper concentrates to South Korean smelters, hedging finished metal on Shanghai's futures exchange to bypass the U.S. entirely. Ottawa's trade minister told Parliament that all options, including retaliation and WTO complaints, are under consideration, but insiders suggest rerouting exports to Asia is the quicker fix. Wall Street analysts paint a grim picture. If the price premium persists above $1,000 through September, U.S. manufacturers could face an additional $4.2 billion in costs this quarter, potentially shaving half a percentage point off fourth-quarter GDP. In short, a tariff meant to secure U.S. supply chains may instead drive metal and economic growth abroad, leaving American factories with a massive bill as Canada pivots toward Asia. Ottawa thought it had secured a truce on June 30th by scrapping its 3% digital services tax, projected to raise $5.9 billion Canadian dollars over 5 years. The move aimed to restart trade talks with Washington before a July 21st deadline. The White House welcomed the concession but responded with the copper tariff on July 8th, also threatening a 200% duty on pharmaceuticals if Canada doesn't comply by the deadline. Canada supplies 17% of U.S. refined copper imports, much of it mined in British Columbia, smelted in Asia, and shipped back to American factories. By targeting this global supply chain, the tariff disrupts every link. An electric vehicle's 80 kilograms of copper now carries a $220 surcharge per vehicle at current futures prices, with no immediate domestic alternative. Ottawa's response prioritizes speed over confrontation. Teck Resources is diverting concentrates to South Korea for sale in China. Quebec officials are negotiating with buyers in Peru and Chile to replace U.S. markets. Industry insiders suggest Canada may waive export permit fees to encourage miners to ship east, avoiding job losses. While Carney's team keeps retaliation as an option, diplomats admit WTO disputes could take years, too long to mitigate the tariffs' impact on construction, data centers, and grid projects. Canada's pivot is already underway. On March 31st, Statistics Canada reported a 24.8% surge in copper exports to non-U.S. buyers, while U.S. sales dropped 6.6%, the widest trade gap in 9 years. A Montreal Street poll aired by Global News on March 6th captured shoppers pledging to boycott U.S. goods, echoing the Buy Canada sentiment from the 2018 metals dispute. Investors see opportunity. On July 10th at 6:25 a.m. Eastern, S&P futures rose on hopes of an Asia-focused free trade deal for copper and grain. Yet Canada's counterstrike looms. Carney has $125 billion in U.S. imports targeted for tariffs, set to activate at 12:01 a.m. on July 22nd if the copper duty persists. Bay Street estimates this could cut U.S. exports to Canada by 4%. Cox Automotive warns that a Canadian-built car will carry a $6,000 surcharge due to combined copper, steel, and aluminum tariffs, while even Detroit-made pickups face a $3,000 hit. Homebuyers aren't spared. CoreLogic's February report estimates that metal and lumber tariffs add $17,000 to $22,000 to new home costs, erasing down payments for many first-time buyers. A May 1st National Association of Home Builders survey pegs the material surcharge at $10,900 per single-family home just 4 months into the tariff regime, stalling construction from Arizona to Ohio. J.P. Morgan analysts warn that if copper prices hold above $12,000 per ton through September, the auto and housing sectors could drag fourth-quarter GDP down by half a percentage point. This is the cost consumers face, paying for a trade war with every car purchase or home loan. The ripple effect of Trump's 50% copper tariff is clear. record high futures, Canada's pivot to Asian markets, and U.S. builders tacking thousands on home prices. The next 10 days are critical. If Canada triggers its $125 billion counter-tariff on July 22nd, the trade war could escalate from copper to pharmaceuticals and beyond. Washington can still de-escalate, but will it retreat to curb inflation and preserve alliances, or double down, betting voters will accept higher costs for security? What's your prediction? A last-minute deal or a full-scale trade showdown? Share your thoughts below. Your comment could shape tomorrow's headlines.